Good evening. Welcome to Grandma's Attic Music Review. Well, tonight's going to be a different kind of a show. We're not going to do music tonight. We, as you saw at the beginning of the show, this show is dedicated to our producer, who is no longer with us. Tonight we're going to do a show that's going to be 100% devoted to suicide awareness, suicide prevention, and recovery from the loss of someone that may have taken their own life. So tonight we have with us our new producer, Jay Matthews. We have Melissa Cotta, and we have Kerri. I knew I'd get something wrong. And Kerri Gray. And we're all going to sit here and we're going to talk about what can be done under the circumstances of knowing that somebody may be in danger, knowing that yourself is in danger, or helping a family that's been through what you go through if you lose somebody. So we have Kerri and Melissa with us from Bridging the Gap for Safety and Healing.
Correct.
You want to talk a little bit about what that is and what that does for the purpose that we're here for?
Sure. So this coalition called Bridging the Gap for Safety and Healing was created 6 years ago in 2016 after I had witnessed a suicide jump from the Mount Hope Bridge. And that particular day was not a good day. It was a bad day. I didn't know this person, but I interacted with him, and I wasn't able to change the course of events. And it was one of those things that, as a trained crisis intervention person, I went through guilt and a lot of woulda, shoulda, couldas. And so anyway, it was a journey. It was a process. After a few months, I knew I needed to do more. And so that's why the coalition was created. I did find someone online to help me with the cause, Brian Ganley, so he helps with the coalition. And it is a 3-tiered mission. And the first tier, obviously, we need to get suicide physical barriers up on bridges, because without that, people are going to continue.
Not just bridges, other places where people can go from high places to low places.
So I'm sure once I get these barriers up, and our coalition does, we have a lot of people working really hard on this issue. There are so many other, like you say, so many other lethal ways that suicide occurs, and that continues with parking garages, overpasses, and things like that. So for sure. So in addition to that, we do a lot of education. We go out and we talk to people about mental health issues, the stigma. We just try to give them correct information about what's going on, and also the prevalence of this issue. And there are so many people in Rhode Island and across the nation that have been affected by this particular type of suicide. Suicide is a huge problem, and we do help people in general, but we are focused on bridge suicide right now, and we have so many team members that help us. Kerri is one of them, and she tells her story much better than I can, but that's what we do.
So one of the things that you said was that you went through a series of emotions. Number one of them being guilt. Do you feel like, and do you believe that survivors normally go through those stages?
They do, and I've talked to many survivors, whether it's witnesses like myself, also first responders. I've talked to many first responders. We've had people from chief of police, state police, local police, firemen, Coast Guard, it just police officers. It's just so many of them, and they go through all these stages. But also the people that have lost loved ones, and they go through it too. Should have seen it. I didn't see it. How did I not know? I could have done something to change it.
I know that was something that was going on for me. Yeah. I couldn't get it out of my mind that I should have seen this coming. I should have seen the signs.
Yeah.
And especially since I'm a trained professional, I work in crisis. I know crisis. You know, I should have known. But I've thought that through. And I can't be in a place of, I need to be in a place of recovery and of helping other people recover. I can't be in a place of guilt. Guilt is, it's not my fault. It's really nobody's fault. I feel like it's really nobody's fault.
Mm-hmm. I think that everyone has their own process, their own journey, and it is different for everybody, how they get to where you're at right now. This information is so new to you. As the days go on, things will unfold and you'll have new perspectives. Kerri's situation goes decades back. My situation that got me the catalyst to start this petition and this coalition started 6 years ago. I grew up in the area where this happened, and I knew it happened. I knew people were going off our bridges, but I didn't know how often they were going off. And so I started researching, and that's what got me going. So I took the time to feel what I felt, because it's valid, no matter whether we're police officers, trained professionals, whatever. All our feelings are so valid, and it's really important to validate that and to go through your own process and not to put a timetable on it. It's shorter for some people, longer for others. So once you get to that point, then what are you going to do? Some people choose to do nothing. Some people continue to do something to make it a difference.
Yep.
I had to do something. I don't know why. I'm driven to do it. I know Kerri feels the same way. And there's a lot of people that work on this coalition with me and her, and they all feel the same way too.
I feel the same way also, kind of on a different level for a different reason, but when I lost my son in 2018, it wasn't suicide, but it was overdose. And I had to process that, and I immediately knew that I had two choices. One, get in bed and never get out, or get out and change the world and do something to change the trajectory of overdoses, especially in our area. So I do that. I think that on the same lines with suicide, we have to do the work. We can't just sit back and let these horrific tragedies continue to happen.
Right.
So sign the petition, yes, let's put up barriers so people can't get up on high places and take their lives. Let's stop that. So you have a URL.
Yes.
I had to
Yes.
think of the thing. A URL. First, Kerri, tell us your story, please.
Well, my story, when I was 9 years old, my aunt chose to jump off Mount Hope Bridge. It's December 19th, 1991. So last year, it was the 30-year anniversary. And to be quite honest, up until about 4 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to openly talk about her and what happened. So it took me over 25 years to really be comfortable talking about it.
And you had to process that whole thing
I did.
over and over and over and over again, I'm sure.
Yes. Like I said, I was only 9, so I had never experienced a loss. And when my mom first told me, I couldn't understand how she fell off the bridge, because in my 9-year-old mind, I had just left elementary school. I mean,
Right.
who would choose to leap off the bridge? You know, and so my mom struggled to explain death to me along with what suicide meant. And for a long time, I carried a huge amount of guilt and shame. I had nightmares every night, replaying over and over that she was jumping, tumbling in the air, wondering how she fell. And in my nightmares, she turned around and told me it was all my fault before jumping.
Ouch.
So in my world, that led to suicidal thoughts of my own. I was cutting myself, I was starving myself, and I felt like I didn't deserve to enjoy life because I thought it was my fault that my aunt wasn't around to enjoy the rest of her life. She was only 40 years old when she jumped.
Right.
She has a whole life ahead of her. I turned 40 this year, you know, and I know I have a lot of life ahead of me still, a lot of things to do still.
Yeah.
And I can just imagine what she could have done.
Did her death affect your 40th birthday?
It's coming in November, and
Yeah.
I can't think about turning 40 without thinking of my aunt.
I understand that. I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
It's important, I think, that we talk about how we're feeling when it comes to these things and how we're going to process them. Birthdays, anniversaries, Mother's Day, Father's Day, all those things, all those anniversaries affect us in the things that we do. We have sitting with us Jay. Jay worked one-on-one, hand-in-hand with Mike, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her good experiences with him, because I think that's important too.
Yeah, it's gonna be very. I don't have the words for what it's gonna be like to not have him around, because he was such a important presence here, and I'm sure everywhere he went in life, he always had something to say, some anecdote. Whenever guests would come on Grandma's Attic, he would always have a story of like some music, some band he saw that that related to whatever they played, and he was so good at connecting with people, and he taught me so much about, you know, what we do here on you know, television and editing and all these important things that like I needed to know, and I am very grateful to have known him.
Thank you for sharing that, Jay. It's important for us to remember people in the way that they affected our life in such a good way. Mike was very helpful to this show, but above and beyond that, he was invested in life. He was invested in this community. He shared his cooking skills, for one. He made the best chocolate chip cookies in the world. Mm-hmm. Better than my spouse, better than my grandmother, the best cookies ever. And he always had a way to bring people to a place of laughter, even when the world around us at that moment might have been tough. He could laugh about it. I think that maybe now, as I look at it, that was him covering his pain. I mean, I knew his pain, but he laughed his way through it, and I should have seen that. But anyway, so we're here to talk about ways that we can look for the signs and ways that we can help people through the grief, and ways that we can help to prevent these things from happening again. What are your ideas on the subject?
So I totally agree, and I think a lot of people wonder that too, what else they could do and how they could see the signs, and many people will say, like, you know, they were just like normal. But I think it's important to, on a regular basis with your loved ones, to check in with them and ask real questions, and just say, hey, how you doing, and not really kind of be listening, active listening.
Hey, how you doing? You're expecting the answer,
Yes.
Fine, and that's the end of the conversation.
Yes.
It's not the end of the conversation.
Right.
Let's take it
Sure.
to a deeper level.
That's right.
Go ahead.
Real talk, you know. And I think everyone's so busy these days, and they're in their phones, they're on they're watching TV, distracted. There's lots of distractions. So it's important to learn how to be present. Practicing mindfulness is really a good thing, and meditation, perfect things to do. But other things that you could do, just slight changes in routine, slight affect changes. Even someone who actually seems a little happier or is really happy and the affect doesn't really match what's going on. So someone who, like you said, he made light of things or was able to laugh at things that are very, the real feeling inside for something like that is sad or some other type of feeling. So that's the kind of thing you would take a pause and stop and say, well, wait a minute, how do you really feel? And this is how I would feel, but how do you feel? Just asking more inquiring questions.
Real
sure.
questions.
Real questions. Yeah.
Let's dig deeper into the reality of things. And I think that it's really important if in your circle of people, in your family, in your inner circle, and in your next layer of circle, because we have that design of inner circle, next circle, and in that first two circles, we need to look at the people that are closest to the people that have left us and see how they're feeling. Yeah. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about why it happened, and let's talk about how you're feeling about it. Let's dig deeper into this so we can prevent it from becoming a ripple effect.
Right.
We don't want a ripple effect.
Right. And I think to really make it okay to do that, because there is the mental health stigma. People are afraid to bring it up. They're afraid to be judged. Their family member that's no longer here or their friend will be judged for their choice to end their life. And that's really not the correct way to approach something like that.
Absolutely
so
not.
To make it not normal, but okay. It's okay,
I think that the wording that has changed, I have a friend that is a grief and trauma therapist, and she said that we have to change the way we use the words. Mm-hmm. Instead of committing suicide, they chose to leave. They chose to change the trajectory of their life. They chose to take their life, but they didn't commit.
They didn't commit a crime.
Right. I know when we look at suicide as a crime, it even becomes a worse stigma. And I think that they have to take that off the table. They absolutely have to take that off the table.
Absolutely.
Your coalition, as you call it, Bridging the Gap for Safety and Health, Healing.
Yep.
What does it do besides this petition to put up barriers on high places? What does it do for people that are in these kind of situations?
So just a little bit of history. So when it first started, the first couple of months or so, that was my journey to figure out where I was at with all of it. There was someone else with me that day, as well as my dog, that witnessed this jump. And so I was concerned about them. So I had to figure that out. And then I just kind of, like, everywhere I went, dentist offices, the coffee shop, I'm like, blah, 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 blah. I would just talk and see what people would have to say. So it was kind of like a little research thing. But then, when I get to the point something needed to be done, we, for the first couple of years, we were just kind of doing community outreach. But then it became clear that we had to go to a state level. So out of the 6 years, it's only been this last 3 years that we've been in legislation. So there's that piece, and that's for the barriers. But there is that human element piece that is very dear to me, and it keeps me going, keeps me motivated to keep pushing for this against a lot of pushback. And
where are you finding the biggest pushback? I mean, I can't understand how dare people push back at something so important and so vital. Yeah. But where are you finding the pushback the most from?
That is the $1 million question.
Yeah, it is too. And doesn't it always come down to money?
Yeah. Yeah.
At the
as well as
at
some
the macro
other unfortunate things that that's part of the second tier. When I said we have a 3-tier mission, is to do education. So part of that education is to dispel some of the myths behind the barriers. One of them, the argument pushback, is changing of the aesthetics or changing view and that kind of thing. So
Changing the view from the bridge?
Yes.
Or changing the view of the bridge?
Both.
both, actually. And so
To save a life?
yes, yes. So with that being said, if you look at some of the barriers that are on bridges across the country, in particular, well, we're down, I don't know what county this is, Westerly County
This is
area.
New London
New
County.
London County, okay.
Right.
So over in where we're at, Newport County area, we have these 4 bridges that surround our community. But if you go over into Massachusetts, which is just a few miles that
Right.
way, there's the Braga Bridge, and also going towards the Cape is the Bourne Bridge and the
The
Sagamore.
Bourne Bridge.
And all 3 of these bridges have barriers on them. So that, we look at that, and when you go over these bridges, so if you want to go on a field trip and check this out for yourself, you can drive over the bridge, and the way that the barriers are constructed, at the speed you're going, you don't even see the barriers. You see the view because they are angled in such a way. So it is not distracting, obstructing any of the view. We also have a great video that Kerri took down at the down in Tampa, the Skyway Bridge, and she narrates it beautifully and calls out Rhode Island like, we need to get this done because all these other states are doing it, and they're doing it in not very. I mean, we've been doing this, working on this for 6 years, but this is decades-long issue. But other states are doing it in much shorter time. And the view, it was beautiful. I'd like to get down there and see. But the view of Tampa Bay from the bridge with these barriers is gorgeous. It's
Right.
not, so there's that. But the other part of the education piece that, with my mental health background, is to really tell people that the stigma, like, don't, think people with mental health issues are doing this. Just, they have problems. Oh, well, they're going to find another way. Statistically, we know that that's not true. There's research going on across the country and in the world that is dispelling all these myths. Brown University has a team of suicide prevention and researchers up there. I've spoken up at Brown with these people, and their research is clear. It's valid. It's statistically significant. The data is you can't deny the data. And the data says that the majority of people that are doing these, choosing to end their life, do not have mental health backgrounds. So
They
some
don't
of
have
the
diagnoses behind them.
Yes,
Right.
there's no history recorded.
Right.
So these are people, and we know this from some of the people in our coalition, their family members. They really had no history. They had an event that happened where they saw no way out. Their pain was so great that was, in their mind, the only choice
Right.
was to end their life. And so that is something that we try to tell people, educate them about, because that is happening more often than people realize.
Because we say that,
Yeah.
what's the saying that we say? We say that
That suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem, crisis, or pain.
so
Yeah.
it doesn't really stand true that suicide ends the problem.
Right.
What stands true, and this is also a statistical fact, what suicide does is invokes more problems
It does.
within the family, within the community, within the society around that particular suicide. It invokes more problems. So what we need to do is not just educate the people that are feeling overwhelmed. We need to educate society as a whole that everything is temporary. This too shall pass.
Absolutely.
That's what we have therapists, that's what we have counselors, that's what we have grief therapists and mental health counselors. But it's really not even about just the mental health guys. Because, like Melissa just said, most people that commit suicide don't have a diagnosis. That's a fact. They don't. They're just overwhelmed by an event in their life that is bigger than their head. And if we can teach people that those situations can be leveled, can be overcome, That's what we need to do, is teach people that the worst possible resolution is suicide.
Right. And so with the bridges and other highly lethal means, we need to take that means away. Because if we don't, people that are having the bad day or the impulse, then there's no chance for an intervention. There's no chance to stop them, to get them the help. There's other less lethal means. We need to get rid of those as well. But physical barriers will stop this from happening.
Well, it will stop people from getting to a place where they can use that means. I feel like by the time a person has actually climbed up onto a bridge, they've already made their decision. And if we can make it so they can't make that climb, then that will help immensely.
What I can tell you, though, it's not much of a climb. So on the Mount Hope Bridge, it's less than 3 feet. It's like a large step. It is not a climb. You can basically just step onto it. It's really, really too easy to do. And the Newport Bridge is very similar. It's about 42 inches. It's a little bit higher, but not by much. So
that's definitely something that needs. I was just thinking as you were talking about the video, we just went across the Bourne Bridge. And you're right, the view is spectacular. But the barriers are very real. They're there, but they're not invasive and they're not concealing. They don't hide the beauty of that crossover. So yeah, that's really something, and maybe it's something we need to put into the mind of architects that are designing these bridges, that part of the design needs to be a barrier.
Right.
Is that part of this petition?
So
or?
it
Go ahead.
isn't, but the bills that we had in the legislation and the bills that are going to be reintroduced coming January are specifically for the bridges that are already erected. However, we have been talking to some legislators about making a bill for future bridges that are being constructed, that these barriers are put up right when they're being constructed. So then we don't have to deal with this issue again.
Right.
Right.
That sounds like the best way to do it.
Yes.
So let's give out some websites. Let's give out some numbers so that people can, number one, sign the petition. I think that's really important. And so that they can find a place for safety, find a place for someone to talk to. Let's put those sites out.
So the petition URL is tinyurl, tinyurl.com/RI Bridging the Gap. And that's very easy to go to. We do have a QR also. If you are so inclined to do that, you can find that on our face page, which is Rhode Island RI Bridging the Gap.
RI Bridging the Gap.
On Facebook.
So I know for some of you, you're like, yeah, but that's Rhode Island. So there are numbers and there are websites for suicide prevention. The newest thing is just a number. It used to be a big long, you had to dial all these numbers to get to. Now it's just 3 numbers. I believe those are 988.
Yes.
All you have to do is dial 988. You'll get a professional, somebody to talk to, somebody that will talk you through whether you're the person in crisis, whether you're a friend or relative connected to the person in crisis, whether you're just feeling like life really sucks right now. Life really sucks for a lot of people a lot, but it's not worth losing your life over. Suicide is eternal. It doesn't go away. Once you cross that line, there's no coming back. We need to find a place so that you can understand that this too shall pass. This is not permanent. Everything in our life that's hard, everything in our life that's overwhelming can be dealt with. Maybe not alone. Nobody should go through anything alone, and you never have to be alone again. That number is 988. That number, you dial that number and you're going to get people that will be there for you. You're going to get people that will help you through whatever it is you're going through, that will help you to find the answers that you need to feel better so that you don't have to make this temporary situation permanent. We love you guys. Do you have anything you want to add to or subtract from in all of this?
I just want to say that everything that we're doing, we're Rhode Island bridges, but people from this area come that way to use our bridges to end their lives. So anybody can sign the petition, anybody can get involved in this cause, and like I said, a big part of our mission is to help support those who have lost hope or just need the support, who have lost loved ones. So we're there for everybody.
As we should be. Thank you, ladies, so much
Thank you
for coming to
having us.
Grandma's
Thank you so much for
Attic.
having us.
We don't want anybody to leave us. We're here. There's good stuff in life. Take my word for it when I tell you there's really good stuff in life. There is also stuff that sucks. We don't have to go through those sucky things alone. I promise you that. Being someone that's been through some sucky stuff, let's not do it alone. Call 988 or reach out to Grandma on Facebook. You know how to find me. I love you all very much, and I'll see you next week. Thank you for putting up with this show. I know it wasn't music, but it was really important. We love you all. Until next week, bye-bye.